podcast. I'm your host, Sam.
And I'm your other host, Leslie, and we're bringing you another episode this week.
Awesome.
Whoa!
And we're also bringing you Zach.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yay.
Welcome back, Zach.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Always
Yeah,
a fun
season
time.
3.
Season
three.
3.
You're a mainstay in the Deadlights space at this point. Even though the space changes, the Zach doesn't change.
It does not.
So
No, he just gets haircuts.
I do get haircuts.
yes.
So I do
slight-
change a little bit on
just-
the exterior.
Slight changes. Enough.
Also, you didn't get the memo. We're both wearing green.
Oh,
You matched the set, though.
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, we
There we
got the
go.
green. We got the red. It's always Christmas around here.
Ho, 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 bitches.
Ho, 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 hoes. Speaking of hoes, what did we just watch?
There was a hose in that movie.
There's some hoes in this house. There's some hoes in this house. The Devil All the Time from 2020. Directed by Antonio Campos. Written by Antonio Campos, Paulo Campos, and Donald Ray Pollock. Sinister characters converge around a young man devoted to protecting those he loves in a post-war backwoods town teeming with corruption and brutality. Yeah.
Boy,
Very
was...
astute.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of brutality.
A lot of brutality. It seemed like no one in this town can really escape being bad.
Nope.
Everyone was bad.
It was in their bones.
Because they were all related, too.
That's also part of it, too. So this is actually one of the most recent movie that we've watched so far in this podcast. We've gotten a lot of 70s and 80s movies so far. So it's kind of nice to come back and return to some more recent movies and see how they tackle the genre, which, be honest, isn't really horror.
Mm-mm.
No,
More on the thriller-y kind of side. Dark. I would say dark.
it's dark.
It's
Yeah.
a dark movie for sure.
So it is a really good question as to then what movies we're putting into the bucket and what qualifies them to be in the podcast. And I would just want to say this movie's filled with death.
Mhm.
The
Lot of
theme is death. So
Definitely death. I mean, I would say we're not getting supernatural horrors here. We are definitely getting some human horrors. What is the extent that man is willing to go to for X Factor and the depravity of man we see displayed, I would say, in many different ways in this movie, which is definitely its own type of horror.
Yeah.
And actually this morning I brought it up to one of my friends that we were watching this, and they said, that's horror? And I had never seen this movie, so I really couldn't say if it was or wasn't, but now having watched it, I understand why they had that reaction to it. But I will say that I think it belongs within the dark thriller kind of category. We're going to be dealing with a lot of dark things here, so I think it's perfectly fine for us to discuss this movie.
He came every morning and evening to talk to God. It seemed to his son that his father fought the devil all the time.
All right, cool. Well, shall we get into it?
yeah.
Let's open up the can.
Exa.
Yes. And this movie, I would say, kind of feels like a biography kind of movie. Like a retelling of someone's life. And it is a retelling of a young boy's life, Arvin, who's played by Tom Holland. He's definitely the central character of this film, and all the things that are happening in this room, all the things that are happening in
Here?
this movie are happening to him. So he's definitely the central character. And we also have a narrator going on through the whole time. And so to me, it was giving very much kind of biography, history of a family vibe.
Now, if you ask most people where Knock'em Ohio, or Cold Creek, West Virginia were, they probably couldn't point them out to you on a map.
Something that was a big visual theme that they kept going back to, we kept seeing all the time, was nature. A lot. I mean, this town that this guy grew up in is deep in the woods, first of all.
It's rural.
Very rural. But a lot of important things that happened to the characters in this movie happened in the woods, whether they were good or bad. A lot of green, obviously that comes from just being in the forest, but also a lot of light coming through trees, a lot of shots of lights coming through windows. And because we're in a movie that's very heavily surrounding God and Christianity and the church, aka like the light of God, a lot of heavy oranges, a lot of yellows being cast on people's faces,
Blues.
and shadows too,
Mhm.
where the light was being obscured by things.
Yeah, I love the imageries of the red being implemented in those dark moments. So we saw the reds in the quote unquote horror room. We saw it in the photography in the dark room. And then the red of the cherry on the little kid's
Mhm.
face that was
That
supposed to
blood
look
on your
yeah,
face.
so good.
Yeah, those moments really popped. And kind of going back to also this idea that this feels kind of it feels grounded in reality. There was a lot of long takes too going on.
Mhm.
We saw that in the church a lot. We saw that following behind people in the forest. And at least to me, those long takes make you really feel like you're there. It sets you in the scene. It sets you in that moment, makes you feel like one of the parishioners at the church, makes you feel like you're along the ride with the serial killers sometimes in the back seat of their car. And as the audience, we're kind of trapped in those moments that the filmmakers have decided to trap us in with those long takes. And that kind of goes along with the theme too of like people are trapped in these situations in religion, in their beliefs, in that kind of stuff. And it really just makes it feel more real. It makes it feel like we're there with these characters experiencing these things with those long, drawn out takes and scenes.
These filmmakers I really enjoyed. I think every shot was intentional. Like it looked pretty as well. And the acting was well done.
Mark my word, people! The Spirit will take away your fears if you're willing!
These performances were very subtle. And in a movie where we're talking heavily about a person's history and also their trauma and how trauma comes out in different ways, I think it could easily be overperformed, but these people were professionals and they were great.
You know, and Tom Holland's too, although majority of his performance was just deadpan because he's holding a lot of anger in him. There was some subtleness, and he's really good at portraying sadness in a very angry way.
Well, even the big performers knew when to pull it back for the right moments. Like the big preacher moments were obviously very over the top and well done, but then Robert Pattinson knew when to be just more like, I don't really need to do much.
Yeah.
The creepiest part of Robert Pattinson's character, because we see he takes advantage of the young parishioners, and then Tom Holland, realizes that his sister is being taken advantage by him. And like you said, his character is one of the bigger characters that we see because he's preaching and doing these sermons and all this kind of stuff.
And even the Lord Jesus himself was presented with delusions in the desert, but only through his faith and his strength overcame.
But then when he's confronted by Tom Holland, Arvin, about the fact that he took advantage of his sister, in that moment, I was afraid that Arvin was going to start believing Robert Pattinson's character because he was convincing.
Well, look, I didn't have nothing to do with that. She came to me saying she got that way from some boy. Don't fucking lie to me. I ain't gonna take the blame for no bastard child. It would ruin me, man. You can understand that, can't you?
I was afraid that Arvin was going to start believing him because he was able to bring it in, and be so believable in those moments.
He shrunk down to like a coward of a man.
Oh, that shirt he was wearing though.
Oh, the puffy shirt. I'm the pirate.
I'm a pirate. Yeah, no, he is.
Kill him. Kill that pirate.
Yeah, we were cheering on. We were like, Tom Holland, kill him, kill him.
Kill.
Yeah, no. And also I really appreciated the script. There's a lot of movies that I can't appreciate enough just because of the context, and to me it being a southern movie is not appealing to me. But something about this movie, when it first came out, I played it and I quite enjoyed everything about it. And I think it's because it's written well. It's a well-written and beautiful looking movie with great performances.
And I think the person with the most lines was the narrator.
Willard could feel it welling up inside him now. The urge to get right with his maker before something bad happened to his family.
There wasn't that many dialogue scenes between characters. It was mostly action between characters in the story, which I appreciate much more because that's more true to real life to me. Are we good in the can?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we're
Let's
good.
move on to the meat. The
The
meat of this movie, like we already mentioned, very heavily religious movie. Has a lot, pretty much everything to do with religion. And kind of how people use religion for different things, whether it's good or bad.
If we just pray hard enough, the Lord can do anything if you just ask him right. Okay? Now hold him tight and pray like you mean it.
This movie takes place at an interesting time. Coming out of World War II, going into the Vietnam War, people are desperate to find answers for the horribleness that is happening in the world. People will turn anywhere to find answers. And especially this time, I think religion was a easy thing to hang your hat on as far as like, this is why the world is the way that it is.
It's all God's plan.
It's all God's plan. We can use that to essentially place blame on the good and the bad. This happened to me. This good thing happened to me because of God. This bad thing happened to me because of God as well. And we see these different characters using God and religion to defer blame in a lot of different ways.
Even in a way, because I come from a very religious family, it's also thought to be able to like fill the void in which we start feeling as adults, going about our daily lives. And the only thing that can fill that is Jesus Christ. And you know, going to church will keep you from trouble. It gives people a sense of purpose, especially those like Arvin's dad who had done some pretty terrible things because they're out there trying to protect themselves, and having to do acts that like he's always going to have to live, like survive. Didn't give him a fucking right to kill his dog. But he is one that used religion to try to save his wife, because that is what, you know, the pastors would say is like, you know, just lean into God and he'll be able to fix it. But, you know, that only provides a faith in which is not going to do much besides just give you, quote unquote, some peace at the end.
We need your help, and I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Please, Lord. You want your mama to die? And pray.
This is another small example, but Arvin's mother, there's the whole bit of she's a great cook. She's a really good cook. Everyone in the town always praises her cooking, but she says that it was God that gave her that ability. So not only are people using it like to defer blame, they're also using it to defer praise. You know, like everything that's good in my life, we can thank God for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's always this falling back on religion that all these characters are doing. And then we have a character like Robert Pattinson's character who's falling back on religion to take advantage of people.
Well, he's just using religion to take advantage of people. It's not even his excuse. He's just found his easy way to do it.
Have you shown yourselves as the Lord made you?
You're meaning my birthday suit.
To show yourself as the Lord made his first children is to truly turn yourself to him.
And then also we have the extreme example too of the serial killers, which there's a point where they say that Carl, who's the husband of the serial killer couple, says that death is his true religion.
What Sandy didn't understand was that to his way of thinking, this was the one true religion. Only in the presence of death could he feel the presence of something like God.
That is an example of how people can even explain away killing people to feel, because I'm close to God. He even said, he has a line where he's like, he was going to go get killed in Vietnam anyway. We were putting him out of his misery. So he's already uses religion and uses God and uses death as an excuse for what he's doing, which is just this very interesting, voyeuristic, lustful, twisty, very twisty.
Yeah, no, he himself probably thought that he was God. Because in a way, how can you not think that you are when you are literally putting someone's life in your hands? That must feel so powerful in a very big, I can't even fathom, you know, like how it feels to do that. And like these people definitely have some chemical imbalances in their brain to want to get close to that, of like needing to feel alive, I guess. Something.
Well, also too, there's this whole element of him. They take pictures of the dead bodies and with the dead bodies to then possess these pictures.
It's
a
little
token. One
token.
picture in his wallet of the most symmetrical face he'd ever killed.
Yeah.
And it was very important to him.
Because at first he wanted ugly people because he found his wife to be the beauty. And then that changed, of then finding attractive people to be able to, I don't know, I guess try to get close to that symmetry, to that perfection.
It felt like he was trying to possess them, especially with the pictures. And they have
yeah.
this whole dark room where it's just developing pictures of them, and she's looking at the pictures after the fact too. There's this like possession of these people by killing them and then taking a picture of them. You are kidnapping them. You know, you are holding onto their identity in your pocket. And I think that kind of is going back to what you're saying. Like, he felt like God. He felt like he was creating these images and therefore creating these beautiful moments and then possessing them and keeping it for himself.
And also, one of the biggest conversations of this movie is every man that we came across in this film had murdered someone. So who was justified? Who killed for a good reason? If murder is, you know, quote unquote, the biggest sin that you can make, who was justified? Because the preacher killed essentially Lenora. I mean, he told her to get rid of the baby. She got rid of herself because that also got rid of the baby. So that's in his hands, regardless of whether, you know, like he did it or not.
He caused that situation because he was having sex with a 16-year-old. So
yeah.
She was younger than that. I think she was 14 or 13.
Or something like that.
She had just started high school, I think is what they said.
The other one. But yes.
Was it the second girl?
Yeah, but still, like, she's around that age, 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, Tom Holland, to protect himself and to protect his sister. I mean, he didn't kill those boys, but still, like, he did a lot of violence. The serial killers to capture some sort of twisted fantasy and creativeness. The fucking sheriff mayor, or like wanting to be mayor, so then he's getting rid of corruption, but he's like murdering people.
Just leave off the horn until after the election, you understand?
Don't act like you do nothing wrong.
Crazy enough, these serial killers are religious. Like, we had the man singing gospel music, and then the girl asking beforehand if the people that were about to kill were baptized, because to her it was important that they were baptized to get rid of all the original sin, so then they could go to heaven. I mean, I'm pretty sure that didn't stop them from killing those that weren't baptized, but
it just made them feel better about the act.
Yeah, at least
for her.
Yeah, at least for her. So yeah, religion played a big role in all the other people that were murdering, yet Arvin is the only one that's, quote unquote, I keep using quotes for those that can't see my quotes, that had no beliefs, and he was just trying to protect the people around him and himself.
Was just that there's bad people out there, and if you can, you should do something about it.
Yeah, just like his dad taught him.
There's a lot of no good sons of bitches out there.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of no good sons of bitches out there.
My Lord, Arvin, you've been saying that almost since the day I met you.
So there's this big religious thing going on, but also kind of going alongside of that, we're talking about a lot of trauma, you know, like obviously Willard's trauma from war coming back is passed down into his son, you know, and we see kind of the effects of Willard kind of spiraling out of control into crucifying Arvin's dog and then
Jack.
forcing Arvin to pray in order to save his mom, and then the ramifications of all those things. I think that a nice part about this movie is that everyone gets their comeuppance, you know? This is very much a movie about like reaping what you sow. Everyone who's done something bad does eventually pretty much get what's coming to them.
That was the theme last
It was
episode as
yeah,
well.
the exact same thing of your decisions affect what will happen in the future. And that goes along with this idea of trauma, you know? The trauma that Arvin sustained as a child followed him his entire life and eventually led him to do the things that he did, which kind of led to people's deaths and downfalls and destruction. So this is definitely a movie about trauma as well. And we have an interesting side-by-side tract of religion and trauma going on, and how people turn to religion because of trauma, and also people's traumas then causing them to do terrible things. Yeah, it's a big...
The religion causes more trauma.
Yeah,
which
it's a
then
big
turns you
cycle.
back to religion.
Well, it's, to me, regardless of whether you are using religion to heal, you have to do it properly. You have to coincide it with good teachings and doing it purposeful, because you can also be a kind of person that, you know, goes to therapy and is not healing, because then you're just weaponizing what you're learning and then you're not healing. So if, I don't know, just there, I can see how religion, as a person who isn't religious, can be good for people and can benefit them. But if you're using them to harm other people and stay in a place of what's the word I wanted to use, of just being stagnant, then it's not going to help, regardless of whether the fuck you pray every day or not. You have to be a good person.
The same can be said about trauma as well. You know, like using trauma that you've sustained.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at that. You're right.
I mean, it's the same as trauma.
Religion is trauma.
It's just like trauma.
It's just like trauma.
No,
well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, people can use trauma as an excuse to do terrible things, or use trauma to learn more about yourself and grow as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's a great tie that this movie is making between religion and trauma. And it is a criticism on religion, but it almost is just using it as a metaphor for trauma.
Maybe the Lord wants you to come out into the light. I mean, how can you be close to God stuck in there? The Lord don't like dark places.
You can be a Lenora who goes to church and go visits your mom's grave. How many times does she go in a week?
I thought she went every day.
That's what I thought too.
Every day.
Either every day or at least
You're
like
victimizing yourself.
They went to church and then she visited the grave.
So
Maybe once
you know, you can stay stagnant and visit your mom's grave every single day for 8 years or so. Or you can be an Arvin, push through, beat up everyone else in your life, and be a survivor. No, those two are still terrible. But
I'll be an Arvin.
you know, but like, do you want to survive or do you not want to survive? Not saying that murdering and beating up people is nice. I'm not saying that. But, you know, there has to be some kind of push to want to get better.
And what I do enjoy about this movie is at the end, it's not necessarily saying that one is better than the other. Because yes, Arvin is one of our only surviving characters, but how they leave it is we don't necessarily know that the things that he's done aren't going to catch up with him.
Right.
He kind of leaves it off to be like, I'm just happy right now. I'm happy that someone picked me up, but all this stuff is still out there.
It's almost like he's found his God in being in just this moment. Right now I'm happy. Right now I am in someone's car. They were kind to me. All my stuff is finished. I'm not worried about my trauma anymore.
Right now, he needed sleep and just felt lucky someone was giving him a ride.
All right, great. Well, let's get to the cook.
Yeah, let's
how
cook
they
it up.
actually cook this thing. There was definitely, I mean, we've kind of talked about it already, but there's a couple motifs that they were playing with in this movie. One was definitely the cross. Mm-hmm. You know, that was a big image in Arvin's life, and also in Willard's life, his father. That's another example of him kind of passing down this trauma to his son, because we start the movie off with Willard witnessing one of his fellow soldiers being crucified on a cross by the Japanese during World War II. He carries that back to the United States, sets up his own crucifix in the forest that every time he sees it, you know he's thinking about that moment.
Yep.
And then that then passes down to Arvin, who associates the cross with his abusive father, his emotionally and physically abusive father. So the cross, while it is a religious symbol, in this movie, it feels like a symbol of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
of generational trauma.
I mean, the cross is something that people bared because Jesus Christ was killed on a cross, and that
Because
was a
of his
form
father.
because of his father. He was brought to this planet knowing that he had to sacrifice himself for the sins of others. Yeah, and that was a form of torture, of bearing your own cross that you were going to die on.
We saw the drawing of Jesus Christ carrying his cross multiple times. It was up in Arvin's room. Jesus Christ carrying, I mean, that's it, you know, like that's exactly what this movie is talking about. It's the duality of the cross is the fact that it is a symbol of good and evil.
Years ago, Willard had fitted together a weathered cross above a fallen tree in a small clearing behind his house.
Now you pray now. Now you pray now. You hear me?
Yes, Lord! Save my mama, Lord!
I really like that this movie does span a couple generations, because we're with Willard for a good part of this movie, and then we move on to being with Arvin for a good part of this movie. I like that fact because it really does show how this generational trauma is passed down in a very effective way.
The sins of the father.
The sins of the father being passed down, and we see the father having his child and the child growing up, and we see the effects of all the decisions of his father then affecting him. It's a great... I like the cook of this movie because they do a very good job of letting us spend time with all these characters to understand how their decisions affect other people, and especially their children. I think that's a very good thing that they do. Another symbol that we have going on and traveling through time is the gun.
Chekhov's gun.
Chekhov's
Chekhov!
gun.
Just learned that today.
It's the first thing that Willard presents to his uncle. That then is passed to him, which is then passed to Arvin, and then Arvin ultimately uses this gun to cause destruction.
Some people were born just so they could be buried.
Oh, God. That line is heavy.
Heavy.
Especially for a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. Imagine if that was how you got started.
Well, it's interesting, too, that the sheriff who delivered that line was delivering it to the person that ultimately killed him.
Oh, shit, yeah. And also the gun that caused all of the trauma to begin with in this family is the one that ended the trauma for the family as well.
Mm-hmm. Oof.
Look at all that. Look at these circles that we're creating. Look at these circles. And I think, too, that there was this symbolism, too, at the end of Arvin returning to his home where all this trauma started. And for the most part, the dog, you know, the death and the sacrifice of the dog was a big point of trauma for Arvin. For him to then return to the place where it all started and then to bury the dog.
Give him his proper burial.
It was very much a closure moment, I felt like, for him.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to the thrill of this thing. The scary parts. And
so scary.
Man is looking pretty scary in this movie. Man is looking very, very scary. People are using religion for an excuse of all sorts of things.
The way you delivered that was funny.
Like a sermon.
Man is scary.
And a man.
A man is scary.
What was the word that Robert Pattinson said when he was preaching? Deliverance?
Delusions.
And what the Lord experienced was a delusion that would have kept him from saving us.
Delusions.
Oh, that little part of his speech is great. His monologue.
Yeah, well, and that kind of goes back to his character because he's causing all these different delusions of people, and if something goes wrong, he's going to blame it on delusions. And that's, again, I mean, that's part of what we're talking about, you know? It's like he will use religion and he will use his power as a preacher to get what he wants. That's what all these people are doing, you know? Like, what do we do for religion? What do we do to find inner peace? And, we see that with the dog. The dog is used as a sacrifice to find peace.
This here is my boy's dog. We loved him. And now you take him.
Bring him back!
You save Charlotte.
Kind of going within the title of the movie, they do say it pretty much like from the top of the movie that people find fault in the devil all the time. And that line is talking about how people can blame the devil, religion, their God, their beliefs on all the bad things that have happened to them and all the bad things that they do.
Instead of properly dealing with it and accepting it as their own fault and their own traumas. Yeah.
Which then kind of opens the door up to like, why don't you just do anything? You can get away with anything if you just blame the devil for it.
He wasn't nothing but another model.
I told you I don't like this anymore. Ain't it fair if I hate the way some of them cry?
Well, not that you'd appreciate it, but tears make for a good photograph.
You can't just commit crimes and sins, whatever you want to call it, and go to a little dark room with some freaking what's his face in Catholicism, a father, to get rid of them. It doesn't work that way. You have to own up, take responsibility, so then that way you can start the actual process of healing and never do it again. God damn it, that's the goal. You can't just keep committing it and then being like, oh, so sorry, Father. Can you forgive me? Thank you.
It's been 2 hours since my last confession.
It was a big day today.
No, it
is a big day.
You're right, though. A lot of people use it as a crutch instead of as a
crunch.
tool. It should be a tool more than anything.
Yeah.
Use it as a way to give yourself lessons and rules on how to be a good person. Don't use it as an excuse to do bad things or an excuse to do good things or a reason for the bad things that happen.
You stabbed your wife in the neck with a screwdriver, tried to bring her back from the dead, and then buried her body. That ain't an accident, Roy. That sounds like a crazy person who killed his wife.
All right, let's get to the ride. Let's get to the final ride. How
Beep,
entertaining we felt this movie was. I was entertained the whole time.
I was too.
This was, I mean, one of the longer movies that we've watched so far.
It was long.
But I felt like it was very driving. We're seeing the history of a family kind of play out, and they set up a lot of things, a lot of different storylines in this movie. And I think us as the audience, we're trying to figure out, like you said, Zach, like, how are these things going to cross over? And eventually they do all cross paths, but I think that the movie uses that to their advantage of like keeping us in there of like, oh man, like when are these people going to cross? Who's going to meet up with each other? Who's going to get their comeuppance, and who's it going to deliver the final blows? I was trying to figure out that the whole time.
How and why so many people from those two peddling places on that map could end up connected has a lot to do with our story. Some would claim it was just dumb luck, while others might swear it was God's intention. But I'd say, with the way things turned out, it was a little bit of both.
When I first saw this, it was a lot of information at first. I was like, okay, what am I seeing? Because then also it was long and you can feel it, but it wasn't boring because you were being fed really great lines, really great performances. Everything looked really good.
Good pacing.
But it is a little bit longer, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it my second run.
We didn't feel the
as well.
runtime. I mean, unfortunately, we've had movies in this season already that are much shorter than this, but we have felt the runtime.
Yeah.
So it is a testament to the entertainment factor of this movie that we didn't feel bored for a movie that was even longer than some of the other movies we've watched. Yeah, it really kept me in there, and I really enjoyed it. I like the devil all the time.
It kept me entertained all the time.
The devil all the time from 2020.
Lovely.
Wow. All right, let's get to these Smash Pumpkin ratings real quick. Let's see what we got. Zach, do you have a a number for us? Do you have a Smash Pumpkin?
I think so.
Okay, what do you got?
I feel bad about saying my score because I feel like every movie that I've seen with you guys, I've been blessed to see some really good movies, and I always score it pretty high. I'm going to give it a 4.7.
Nice.
I don't like to give it a perfect score. Great acting, great pacing, really good ideas with the whole trauma versus religion and how they play off of each other, and the way it makes you think about what the title of the movie means, whether it's like we're all blaming the devil all the time or we're all burdened by our belief systems and that's the devil inside of all of us. And I think it really does a good job of portraying all of that. And the performances were amazing. So,
amen.
Amen. Hallelujah to that.
Yes.
Hallelujah to Robert Pattinson.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you, Daddy. I have a number.
Go for it.
I was going to give it a 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah. Don't know where that 0.5 got lost, but
dog killing.
I can't truly give it a 5 just in my own criteria. But I think it's as good as it's going to get. And so like you mentioned, so far, these movies that we've seen have been rough. So to see something as new as this and it being successful has been quite pleasing. I'm giving it a score for the same things that Zach said. I think the performances had a major plus in this, but to me, it's just how beautiful it looked, and I really enjoyed the shots that we've experienced in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's hard to find a fault for this movie. I think that I'm also going to give it a 4.5. And the 0.5 away is only because it wasn't that scary. You know, we saw scary things for sure. We saw scary people, you know, and their motives were scary. But all in all, it wasn't a very scary movie. So as far as like in the thrill category, I kind of just have to give it off for that. But you're right. Everything else about this movie really works. The writing is great. The performances of the script are fantastic. And the themes really just go right through the whole thing and really create this good picture of the themes that these filmmakers are trying to portray. I think it was great. I really do think it was great. The Devil All the Time.
The Devil All the Time.
Nice. Go see it. Check it out for yourself. Why don't we check out what we're watching next week? And Zach.
Is that my turn?
Yes, you get to.
It's my favorite part.
Whoop. All right. Reach in there. We got a lot in there.
We do. How many do we have now?
It's got to be close to
9?
400. No, not.
There's so many in here.
No.
There's a lot.
There's
Ken,
like
Ken and I
about...
are adopting your idea for when we don't know what to watch.
Oh, perfect.
Yay!
Great. All right. So as always, read the log line first, and then we'll try to guess what we got coming.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh.
A young man's mother is bitten by a Sumatran rat monkey. She gets sick and dies, at which time she comes back to life, killing and eating dogs, nurses, friends, and neighbors.
Oh, no. Are we going to watch Dead Alive?
Yes. I didn't know Peter Jackson
did
horror movies.
Yeah, it's his first movie.
That's awesome.
Peter Jackson. Who's Peter
He
Jackson?
directed The Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
And The Hobbit, but we don't need to talk about that.
Don't talk about those.
We don't talk about The Hobbit here.
But yeah, wow. This is Peter Jackson's directorial debut as far as feature films go. So this will be an interesting one.
Ooh.
Very fun. Very fun. Looks like a fun one. I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either.
Cool.
So
awesome. Thank you, Zach,
well,
for picking it.
thank you so
for
much.
having me again. I always love being here.
Yeah, please tell us what you got going on. We were talking before. You got some music stuff going on, right?
I do. I have a lot of music that I've been releasing over the last couple months, over the course of my entire life that I've been remixing and remastering and all that stuff. Also putting out some new stuff, hopefully in the next month or two. Almost done mixing that stuff. And then I've got another album that a buddy of mine recorded couple months ago. We're going to put that out, put some music videos out. We made a documentary about the whole process as well. And you can find all of that on my Instagram, _stupid_fingers_ has a link to all my music there. And yeah, also DM me if you need any mixing work for any music or audio needs as well.
Hell yeah.
Slide into his
Exciting. Please visit his stuff. It's really fun and it's really good.
Thank you.
If you like Brother Ali, it's like that, you know.
The highest praise.
Yes. I think it's fun. Anywho, you can follow me on Color Me Leslie.
And you can follow me at BeepBeepRichieT. You can call us
Yeah,
at 773-669-6677.
What?
Yeah.
Give us a call.
We have a phone number for y'all to like send us freaking stories so you can be on the pod.
And send us suggestions of movies, anything you want.
Anything.
We might feature your message in the show, so please give us a call.
Like a very low key might. Wink,
Very
wink,
low-key
wink,
might,
wink.
if we get enough. So call, please. You can also follow us at the Deadlights Pod. But until next time,
Let's get spooky. Ooh. I want to commit crimes now.